Welcome, everybody. This is our free public Breaking the Story class for Script Camp. It's designed to give you a sort of general overview of everything we do and go into some of our tactics and methods for just easily and quickly figuring out a story from just whatever pieces that you have. Because people are approaching movie ideas and TV show ideas from several different angles. And you could be starting with the character. Some people like to start with the premise or with the sort of hook or with the twist on the formula or whatever it is we're doing. So there's lots of places to start there and to turn that seed into a fully formed movie idea. So we'll be doing lots of fun activities about that today, as well as just looking at what we do at Script Camp, what are some of these programs that we offer, and some exciting news about some camps that we're announcing just now that should be starting up pretty soon. Let's get into it. Thank you all for being here, by the way. My name is Connor. If you don't know me, then I am the instructor at Script Camp. I just wanted to put this slide up top to say, please remain muted in the class. That gray microphone icon, if you need to unmute or mute yourself, that's what you need to click on. We'll just keep the discussion through text for the most part, and I'll be checking our chat channel, which I can bring up here. There we go. So if you want to join us on Discord, then you can participate in this text chat. Or if you're making comments on the social media, I think we should be able to see them in here, and I think I can talk back. That works most of the time. And often we get fun spam bots that like to just advertise their services with us. So that's just a fun bonus. Let's get into it. So what is Script Camp? We are a Discord screenwriting community that is focused on, we're based in Discord, but we have a website, of course, scriptcamp.net. We are focused on helping you get from idea to finished draft and then to more polished script. Basically, this is like the gym that you go to just get better at writing. We're not trying to deliver an amazing script that will get you signed. This is not a guru course or anything like that. We're trying to just get better at writing, just improving, just doing the reps, running the laps, lifting the weights, or however you want to call the repetition of the reps that you need to put in order to just build the muscles that you need to succeed. So there's lots of free classes and events and workshops like the one that you're in right now, which is a free weekday class. We have Wednesday classes from 5 to 7 and Thursday from 5 to 7 as well. Those are usually going to be more broad topics like characters or dialogue or things like that, whereas our bootcamp classes are designed to take you all the way through writing an entire script. So we have, like I mentioned, some free classes like this one, which we have at least one a week. Often the midweek classes will be free public ones. I think most of the time they are. We have boot camps in Writer's Lab as well. Writer's Lab is like office hours where you can come in with whatever you're working on and just get extra feedback on it, up to 5 pages of written material or outline or script pages, whatever you want. So there's lots of resources here and lots of ways to just get feedback and just start to build your own little network and community of writers that are going to be able to collaborate with you and give you feedback and all these things that you will need to just improve. People to swap with, we have table reads. There's just a ton of stuff that goes on here. So we hope that you will sign up. There's a couple different options. The basic is just $5 a month, which is the cost of one Starbucks coffee, and that will give you 8 classes a month. That's all the weekday classes, as well as access to our video library, private Discord channels, and you just help support Script Camp. And those are all live. All the classes we do are live and interactive. We have videos of all of them, but this is not the sort of college class where you just sign up and just watch videos and work along with the course. You interact constantly because screenwriting is this very social job. And in order to put you on the road to working in the industry, you have to get used to speaking articulately and being what we call good in a room, which is like the ability to communicate your ideas and to quickly highlight and zero in on the flaws in ideas and be able to express constructive criticism in an efficient way, and all these things that just will make you a good person to hire and have on board, because you're not trying to be a person who has written one script. You're trying to become a writer of unlimited scripts, which is its own whole journey. So what we recommend you sign up for is our unlimited program or unlimited membership, which is $49 a month. It does come with a 2-week free trial though, so you get access to everything we do, 70 hours of classes a month. All classes, all boot camps, writers' labs, video library, $100 off consultations and proofreads, and lots of great discounts in that. You get free merch, and you get pilot or feature table reads as well. We have this sort of internal coin system on the server. You don't have to worry about it if you've just signed up or you're wondering what we're talking about. But basically, by just giving feedback and just participating, you earn little, it's the same as the Chuck E. Cheese tokens that you get that you can, you just stock them up. You can spend them on a pair of flip-flops for Script Camp or something like that, or you can use them to get a table read where during our weekly table reads, you reserve a slot to have readers actually read out the lines of your script and give you great feedback on them. So we have different things that you can spend these little coins on, and lots of little rewards like that, but you'll just get the most value if you become a unlimited member. So we recommend that you do that. You can do everything here. Coaching is another option as well if you want one-on-one feedback session with me every month, and a written consultation on a script every month as well. So that is available if you are interested. Let's look at about me just a little bit. My name is Connor, like I mentioned. I teach the boot camps here, most of them, except for ones that are outside of my area of expertise, like, for instance, our playwriting, which we ran for 4 weeks a couple months ago. So, or 6 weeks a couple months ago. So I've been writing full-length scripts for 11 years, since senior year of high school. I was a film major in college and was always writing and directing plays every single semester, so I've been writing full-length stuff for a long time. Moved to Hollywood in 2015 and broke in 2017 with my script Peter and the Wolves, which was Launchpad placement in the top 10, Nickel quarterfinals. I'm later placed in the Nickel Fellowship semifinals. Have been signed and working as a pro-writer in Hollywood since 2017. Wrote on AMC's Creep Show for the Shudder Network. I do touch-ups and rewrites on features, mostly in the horror thriller kind of realm, and I recently had a thriller set up at a major production company. I teach the most stuff here, but we also have our other instructors, Nacho, who is my co-founder for Scriptcamp and runs many awesome events on the server as well. We're getting a little background sound from some mics, so just make sure that your mic is muted, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to use the text chat because we can see it right here. Look at that. Okay, let's keep going. What's next? So what are the boot camps? Those take you from idea to first draft, or perhaps to polished script if it's the rewrite boot camp. But basically, this is the bread and butter of what we do here. We have 2-hour weekly classes using the step-by-step, very practical method. 8 weeks for the feature film, 6 weeks for the TV pilot, 6 weeks for stage play, which that program is done, but we have recordings of. Rewrite is the same deal. Pitch is the same deal. Horror thriller, same deal. And short, that's the new one that we want to announce. We are starting a short film writing boot camp that's coming up. The first meeting is going to be on August 13th. That's going to be on the premise of your short film. So you can RSVP to that now. We have a link that Nacho can give you in the chat, and we have you can reserve your spot in this class because it's going to be a great one. We're going to, over the course of 4 weeks, you're going to write a brand new short film script that will be ready to, if you want to make it with you and your crew, your friends, whoever you work with, then it will be ready to go after 4 weeks of planning and outlining, and then in the middle we will turn in the draft you have to get feedback and revise, and so you will just have basically 2 drafts done of a brand new short film script between 1 and 10 minutes / pages long. So sign up for that if you're interested. We would love to have you for short writing. August 13th, again, is the first class there. Okay, if you want to know how to enroll, you can go to scriptcamp.net/classes to buy any course on its own, or you can sign up for membership, in which case you can just go to anything whenever you want. You don't have to sign up in advance for any classes. If you're an unlimited member, you can just show up to anything at any time. So that's how to sign up. Should we go into... Nacho, anything else before we go into the class? Anything else to announce?
Yeah, so we have 2 things coming up. So on August 3rd, here, I'll post it in the chat. So we have a new program. This is a new event that we're going to be doing from time to time called How I Wrote This. And this free event, open to everybody, where Connor will be, kind of interviewing different pro screenwriters. It's going to be a lot of fun. August 3rd. Here's the link to RSVP. And we have on August 13th is class How to Write a Short Film. So be sure to drop by, and you can just RSVP at scriptcamp.net/event/short bootcamp. Kind of long.
All right.
Here, I'll post it here.
Nice and easy. But yeah, we'll have a link there that you can just click right on. Thank you, Nacho. So yeah, we do lots of things. We do interviews, we do workshops, we do classes, we do lectures, we do labs. This is just kind of your one-stop shop for learning how to write movies and TV scripts. and getting better at writing them. Not for selling them. We're not here to sell anything. We're not guaranteeing that you will make $1 billion or be, the next James Cameron. This is just, we have to approach this very practically. It's like going to the gym. It takes years to get good enough before you can actually be writing at a professional level. And I tell people often, some people don't believe me, but to become a professional writer requires the same level of commitment as a professional athlete. Perhaps more spread out over time. It doesn't require, like you could just distribute that effort differently, but it is still the same. If you count everything we do, reading scripts, outlining, revising, drafting, collaborating, swapping, everything we do, this requires the same time commitment as becoming a pro baseball, basketball, football player, something like that. So something to keep in mind. If you just want to write for yourself, just to get better at this, and because you enjoy the art form and just for fun, that's always fine too. But these classes are oriented towards people who want to do this for a living and be put on the road to writing features, films, and TV shows. So one of the most important things you can do is to keep reading scripts. Make sure you're doing this, and if you're just starting, and a lot of folks here might have never read or written a script before in your life, if you don't know where to start by reading. You've got to read at least one script a week. Up to 3, I say 3 a week is about what you should be aiming for. And we have tons and tons and tons of links to find places where you can get scripts to read. The scripts you should be reading are spec scripts, ideally newer spec scripts, not shooting scripts or transcripts of things that have been written before. We're looking for spec scripts that have been written in the same spirit that we are writing things, which is to try to break in, to try to get meetings, sometimes as writing samples or sometimes to actually get them produced. But spec is what that describes the type of writing that we're reading for the most part. So read at least one spec every week. So this class is going to be a huge overview of many things we do here and a demonstrative lecture session on how to create a strong movie premise. It should be covering a lot of material, so if this is all kind of new to you, don't feel like you have to remember every single thing. You can take notes if you want, or if that's helpful for you, but you can just follow along to get a broader sense of what we do and what this is like. Totally up to you, but like we mentioned the whole time, use that chat. If you have any questions, I'll be checking back every once in a while and reviewing them, as well as getting a sort of we'll be doing exercises that require people to say stuff and to weigh in very soon. So keep your hands on the keyboard and be ready to participate. All right, there's a great link in the chat. Thank you, Nacho, for a ton of blacklist scripts, which are going to be the ones you should generally be reading. If you want to be writing feature films, you should be reading one of those scripts every week. There's tons to choose from. Some of them have been produced, some of them haven't been produced, but those are sort of like the big specs in Hollywood any given year. Okay, let's keep going here. And let me take the chat off for a second. All right, so a couple of things about just this career before we go into it. A lot of myths and assumptions exist about this just because a lot of folks don't quite know what this involves, or your only experience of this is you see screenwriters on TV or something, but obviously they're never going to get everything quite right. Some things that you just don't need to worry about. Degrees, film school, internships, classes, workshops, or film studies kind of programs, anything like that, or even this class. You don't need to take any classes. You don't need to read any specific books. Nobody's ever going to ask for your qualifications or ask to look at a resume or ask to look at your GPA or anything like that ever at any point. You can be a successful screenwriter if you're like an ex-convict. You can be a successful screenwriter if you never went to college. You can be a successful screenwriter. The only thing we're looking for is the work. Your background and where you come from and your education and your qualifications don't matter pretty much at all. Another myth or assumption, it's all a matter of networking and nepotism. Well, those things exist, certainly, and they will, in order to play the game, you have to do networking very much. You have to meet people and be very social and be willing to go to parties full of strangers and things like that. But that will only get you read if you play all your cards right. It will still come down to the work. And if you do all that networking, you don't have a great script afterwards to back it up, then why would you just waste all that networking? There's no point. So it's not all networking and nepotism, but networking is a big part of this, certainly. You might think you might be able to network in unscripted, though, which is a mistake I made when I first moved here, and I ended up working in reality shows for like a year and a half. No, there's almost no crossover, and the people don't even tend to like each other. So unscripted, like reality shows, unscripted documentary shows like that, they will probably not be able to help you with anything related to getting into scripted TV or movies. There's the myth that nobody reads anything in Hollywood. Nobody reads scripts in Hollywood. Well, that's just not true. Lots of people read scripts. Nobody will read the majority of things because the majority of scripts going around are just flat out terrible. Like thousands and thousands and thousands of scripts are floating around town any given year. How many of them are actually bought and produced? Like under 50. How many of them are actually good? Like it's a tough metric. What does good even mean? But how many of them would I probably consider good? You know, like 200-ish, 300 maybe? I don't know. Like, it's impossible to say. But you get the idea. You're trying to sell water to water salesmen. That didn't make any sense. Terrible metaphor. You shouldn't worry that anyone's going to steal your ideas or steal your work, or I have to copyright and jealously guard everything for a couple reasons. One, because you're probably not good enough for anyone to want to take anything from you. And some people say, well, yes, I am. But most often than not, no, you're simply not, and you look very silly for thinking that you are. So incredible that anyone who sees your work would want to steal it right away. So just don't really worry about this. It's not really a factor if you have concerns about sharing stuff at the early stages or before they're all legally fully defended or whatever. This might not be the type of writing for you. You have to get used to the idea of sharing things even at the early stages with a pretty wide audience. There are a couple others on here. I don't have to go over every single one, but just a couple highlights from the rest of this list. There are cargo containers of amazing scripts just around in Hollywood because nobody respects true genius or true talent or whatever like that. No, even if you write a great script, even if it never gets made, you can still get great, very tangible results from it. It's not like it was a total waste of effort. You can use these things as writing samples, for instance, assuming that they fit within certain criteria. And there's still just going to be benefits you can get from these things, even if not every single thing sells for a bunch of money right away. I heard someone sold their first script ever, so therefore my first script ever might be good, or this is a viable overnight success career. Almost certainly not. And anytime you hear about somebody sold their first script, usually that's going to mean that this was the first script that they sold, not the first script that they ever wrote. And if it is the first script that they ever wrote, then many of those people are coming from backgrounds of playwriting, novel writing, comic book writing, or things like that, which just build a lot of those same skills. So don't think that your first script don't think that you'll be the exception to most of the common truisms when it comes to this career. And last, once you actually get agent or manager, which takes about 10 years on average from the time you first start looking into this, I've made it. Now I don't need to do anything else. Now I'm just famous and rich forever. No, that's when the real work begins. So we won't even get into agents and management and reps and stuff. I've been repped twice, so I can tell you how to do it, but it doesn't matter till you can really write, which takes quite a long time. So just focus on building those skills. That's why we have this community. It's to take the focus off of selling something or producing something. This is to just push you on the road or give you a boost on the road to becoming the person who can write unlimited scripts, not to having written one thing to get you any one tangible result. Here's just a general overview of how to become a feature writer. You don't have to read through this whole thing super carefully, and I'm not going to go through it, but the point is, I'll just summarize it. Steps 1 to 2 are get really good at writing movies, which takes a long time, longer than you think it will take. Most people try to go out before they're ready. That you should not. Step 3 is you are going to make a portfolio of 3 or 4 really fantastic, undeniably incredible scripts, and then you're going to try to enter those into contests and fellowships and just get them to whoever you can that's in the industry, maybe assistants or script coordinators or anyone like that, as best you can, or you can maybe query with it if you really think it's fantastic and you have some great contest placements. Then sometimes managers will re-query, sometimes. Not often. And then once you nail those meetings and get reps, then you will have, usually starting with a manager these days, you will try to develop a spec to go out with, which means send it to people in town with the intention of getting you meetings based on it. And then you will, once you do enough drafts with them and they have to be really happy with the script before they'll take it out, then they will be able to get you meetings. If you get good responses, you go on what we call general meetings or a water bottle tour, which is a bunch of meet and greets, essentially. I've done 2 of these, and I think I'm going to actually have to do another one of these. They're actually kind of fun if you enjoy this stuff. I don't mind them. They're always writers get so nervous for these, but I'm always like, no, I'm just enjoying it. So you're only going to get those if they already liked your script, so there's no need to be nervous. So general meetings are great, and then you go into specific meetings on a script if they're showing interest in something. And then at that point, you will be able to work with producers and the creative executives that are there to develop a spec assignment even more. And then you're going to have to do almost all this for free. There's development money is like really rare to get. And unless you are already a big name, you probably won't get paid to do those initial drafts. And then it's like, that's what's so annoying about it. It's like, if they like it, they will buy it, but they won't pay you to write it. So it might be months down the drain, potentially. You're still trying to network and just trying to build up your web of contacts of executives and people that like your work and want you to succeed and might move to a different job at some point. So, like, you should be nice and be easy to work with everyone you can. Anyway, the point is, I wouldn't worry about these steps. The last two steps are what? Do that 500 times as various projects fall apart, and eventually sell something, and then pay a bunch of money to join the Writers Guild, and then the real work begins. So, like, don't worry about steps 2 through 8 of this if you haven't done step 1, which is get really good at writing movies, because that's the most important thing, and that will make your employment, more secure. You're more likely to get hired if you're fantastic at this, if you're an authority at this, and if you can speak with great authority, and just a great deal of control over your own material and work, and structure like the back of your hand, and you've read 10,000 scripts in your life, and you know what's going around town and what's selling and what, this is like 9 jobs in one, and until you get past step 1, you don't need to worry about any of it. You should just be, if you don't know what to do, or if you're just starting, read a lot of scripts and write scripts. That's it. So I don't want to overcomplicate this and make it seem like it's impossible to get into, although I will say writing in Hollywood, writing movies and TV in Hollywood professionally is almost impossible. But if that doesn't dissuade you, then you're in the right place, because this career will only support people who didn't give up, because a professional is just an amateur who didn't quit. Okay, so I think I want to get started. I need to keep going through disclaimers and stuff, but this is hard. It's difficult to get feedback. A script is a long document that it's tough to tell the quality of through just quickly glancing through it. There's a bunch of reasons this is really difficult. I think I don't need to go on and on about why it's so hard. And why would you want to write a movie? Well, the reasons are, I mentioned the first one, you want to be a professional Hollywood feature or TV writer. Or maybe you want to direct the movie yourself. Like, it's okay if you just want to make shorts or sketches with your friends. Or maybe you just want to write as a hobby for personal enjoyment. That's all okay, but we're going to be giving advice and guidance with the assumption that you want to write for Hollywood, for a job, for the rest of your life, perhaps. Okay, so don't think about this too much. But what are some movies you like? Let's see in the chat. Don't think like, what's my absolute favorite? Just what are some movies you like? Any, either old favorites or something that you saw recently.
So just for anyone who's new to Discord, if you don't see the list of channels, you may be on your phone and you just swipe from left to right to open up all the channels, and then just scroll down until you find a channel. It's called #Breaking the Story, and you can type in there and let us know if you're having trouble.
Yep, we've got a couple in here already. Thanks, guys. So yeah, we see Dune, The Babadook, The Hours. Keep on going. Just post random movies that you like. Just there's no category to narrow this down. What are some things you enjoy? Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Zombieland, Clive Barker's Hellraiser. I like when we include the the name of the creator responsible. That's kind of fun. Come Play, The Wicker Man, Little Shop of Horrors, Moonrise Kingdom, Pulp Fiction, Usual Suspects, LA Confidential, Inside Out, Candyman. This is great. Okay, so very wide range of interests here. You guys are into, I see kids movies, I see horror movies, a lot of horror and thrillers. I see a little sci-fi, Shark Exorcist. Thanks for that. I don't quite know what genre that is, but horror, I suppose. My Neighbor Totoro. Yeah, see animation, a lot of animation, a lot of. We actually have an animation writers group now, which people have been really enjoying. Cool. This is great. So the reason that I'm asking you to just list off a bunch of movies is for a couple of reasons. It's nice to just have like a sense of what everyone's into, and also just for this exercise here. Let me call on was there a boot camper that posted? Yeah. Amanda, do you want to unmute for a second?
Sure. Yep.
So you listed a couple movies.
Yeah.
What were the ones that you listed? You have Up. What else?
Moonrise Kingdom, Pulp Fiction, Usual Suspects. I do notice a theme of some of my favorites, like Get Shorty and Snatch, or some other ones,
Hmm.
where you're following like four different stories,
Hmm.
and they all kind of tie together. That's like a theme in some of my favorites. But anyways, what's your question?
What's your favorite of all these ones you just mentioned?
Um,
Don't think too hard. Just
oh,
it's okay if it's not your absolute favorite. Just what's one you like a lot.
uh, Pulp Fiction was really good.
Okay. So can you tell me what it's about in one sentence? God, you picked the hardest one. All right, you want to pick a different one?
Um, yeah.
Okay.
And Moonrise Kingdom is not really that easy. Well,
Yeah, it
there's
is.
like three or four plot lines. I haven't seen that one for a long time. Up.
Oh,
Up
okay.
is a better one.
Sure. Go ahead with that one.
Um,
One sentence. Don't. It doesn't have to be a perfect logline, so it can be a long sentence. Don't worry too much, but just in one
okay.
sentence, what's it about?
An old man, a widower,
Hmm.
goes on an adventure and comes to terms with the guilt he had for not taking his wife on the adventures of his life, and realizes that um, sometimes the simple things are the best thing.
Okay, that's. I mean, that's good. I mean, that's sort of the themes, though, is what you were
Yeah.
describing. If you were
Yeah.
trying to get someone to pretend you have to convince me to watch it, though. So,
Right.
what's what? We don't have to
He
focus
goes on
on
an
what the character
adventure with his
learns as much.
house.
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
focus on just the basics of what we're doing in the
Yeah.
movie. What's it about?
But I told you, remember how I told you I always start with the themes?
Yeah. I understand.
um,
Let's try this
I'm an
one.
oddball a little bit. But yeah, so an old man goes on an adventure with a kid in his house, which is carried away by balloons, and meets a funny talking dog, um, and has to battle an evil explorer.
Yeah. Okay. Nice job.
That's
That was pretty good.
that's how I, yeah.
Yeah. I don't actually remember if the balloon thing intentional or was it an why did the balloon thing actually happen? I can't remember.
We're trying to um the construction workers were trying to make him move out his house so they could but some office buildings.
Hmm.
And this was the house that he built with his wife. So he wanted to preserve the house. And so he blew up all these balloons and tried to intentionally got
Oh,
his
okay.
house to float away
It was on purpose. I see. It's
and
almost
go to Paradise Falls.
James and the Giant Peach style,
So
where
fun.
you have you know, remember, did you ever see that or read that one where Giant Peach has a bunch of seagulls tied to it, making it fly around?
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of similar to that one. Anyway, but so the point is that um, with when you're coming up with movie ideas, it's helpful if you try to come up with them in a similar way or using similar tools to what we use when we're just trying to tell somebody about a movie that already exists and trying to get them to watch it. When we ask what is it about, we are typically not looking for the internal journey as much as we are the external journey, because that's what's going to hook people in a little bit more. We want to know this is a story about a guy who does blank, right? And there's going to be examples of this that we can use that will be both sort of high concept, and that's usually what we want to aim for, as opposed to execution dependent, which is sort of on the other end of the spectrum. And I wanted to use this as a sort of jumping off point. Pulp Fiction, yeah, very execution dependent, sort of like writer-director driven movie. And same with a lot of these. I mean, like, just because execution dependent doesn't mean it'll be a bad movie. It just means that it's probably not the kind of script you want to write as someone who's trying to break in as a writer. So you probably wouldn't want to write a Pulp Fiction. You probably would not want to write something like The Northman, which I just saw recently, and was very cool. But if you wrote it just as someone trying to break in with a script as a pro in Hollywood, a lot of people would be like, "What are you doing?" It's like a very director-driven movie. So you can feel free to thank you for participating. I might call on you again in just a second, but let me go on about this idea a little bit before I move on. So this sort of one sentence thing. So often in screenwriting, you are forced to be concise and to reduce your amount of words that it takes to express an idea of any kind. Whether it's just in a scene, whether it's the whole script, whether it's a one sheet which summarizes the idea behind it, you need to just try to take things out. So much of screenwriting is excising the things that don't fit or that are irrelevant for someone's understanding of the story. It's all about clarity and simplicity. Those are some of the key things when you're trying to write movies. And so, like, that's why most of the time you're going to really hook someone in with a high concept premise. And I'm going to go into what that is just a little bit. High concept does not mean more complicated. A lot of people think that they have an idea of what high concept means. So if your idea of high concept is it's about math and physics and chemistry, don't worry about that at all. It's not about the complication of the subject matter or the difficulty of the text. It has nothing to do with the genre or the budget or the subject matter at all. High concept refers to an engaging, self-contained premise with broad appeal that will sort of bloom in the mind to suggest an entire structure and series of events. And we can sort of just quote, we say we see the movie, which means that somebody who you've told just a little bit about it can imagine it enough that they understand what you're going for. They get what the genre is, they get what the appeal is, and if they can see the movie, it doesn't mean they'll necessarily want to read the script, but somebody's not going to want to read a script if you explain it to them and they can't see it still. If they can't see it, then they're like, what even is it? I don't even get it. So high concept movies are very easy to express what they are, because usually we have this principle of this thing meets that thing. And that might sound a little reductive, and it kind of is, but it leads to some incredible storytelling if you pull everything off right. And the pieces of a working movie idea are such that if you just have a couple things in place, then you can sometimes outline the entire movie just based on those few elements that you know already. And generally when you're trying to break in, I'll always come back to this idea. You want to be writing high concept movie scripts when you can. If you have some really, really complicated personal vision of something you want to do, like a Northman, you want to do The Witch, you want to do Upstream Color, you want to do kind of art house movies or something like that, there's nothing stopping you from writing those, but there's also everything stopping you from getting those funded and from actually starting a writing career based on them. So if you want to do execution-dependent movies, you usually have to be a filmmaker or know a filmmaker really well that will then be the director on those. I'm going to give you some examples now of the opposite, which is execution dependent. And I'm going to try to answer some of those questions that I actually posed to you just a second ago, but for this movie that I saw. So this is the Northman. It's a very recent. In fact, I think it's still playing in some theaters. But this is this art house sword and sandal Viking movie with I'll call it an adventure film with mythological elements. And so if we ask this question, what is it about, just in one sentence, we might say we're doing Lion King, we're doing Hamlet. A wimpy Viking prince gets betrayed a wimpy Viking prince's father gets betrayed and killed by the evil uncle. So now the kid swears vengeance, he goes off and becomes a big brawny Chad, then comes back as an adult to reclaim his throne. That's the gist of the story. So we want to be able to express not in terms of, and it's got lots of fighting and action, and there's a scene with a giant skeleton knight and this stuff. Like, try not to throw the cool stuff in yet. If you're just answering this question, what's it about in one sentence? So what is it? What happens in the story of the Northman? Wimpy Viking kid, dad gets murdered by uncle. Wimpy Viking goes off to sea to a distant island, becomes a big warrior Chad, comes back to reclaim his throne and kill the bad guy. That's the basics. So you need to be able to express it in just terms that are that simple, whether it's high concept or execution dependent. So now we get to this question of how do we actually convince you to watch it? And the reason I know this is execution dependent is because I have to start to explain it in terms of the execution, the directing, the performances of the story. Because, and let me take a crack at it, the story is effortless to follow and get into. It's certainly not high concept. I mean, because I should just preface this and say, art house work is almost always execution dependent, almost by definition. But the execution of this movie, the direction of the Northman, makes it feel like, here's how I'm going to sell you on it. Because if you're into this stuff, you'll be super into it, and if you won't be into this, it's a love it or hate it sort of thing. So it feels like you're watching something from a different era, which is part of the fun of Robert Eggers movies in general. It feels like we're watching something that was scrawled on a cave wall. I mean, there are long scenes of characters conducting super detailed and very, authentic rituals, eating raw meat, prowling around in the nude, pretending to be animals. It just feels like a depiction of Viking sort of culture with more grit and detail than we almost ever see. And the battle scenes as the prince takes down the new king's evil men are as gory as any hack and slash video game. That's what I got. That's why I think that's my pitch for why you should see it. I can't really point to the story though, can I? Because the story is something we've seen before in Hamlet, Lion King. Like many, it almost feels archetypal because it is very archetypal. This is like directly inspired by these Norse legends and Norse myths, and so it just is one of those stories. There's nothing about it we can point to and say, well, I'm going to convince you to watch it because we've never seen a movie about a kid who goes off and trains to be a big warrior, then comes back to avenge his father's death. I can't say that. That's how I know this is execution dependent. And because it's good is not great marketing, generally. And I think the originality or mechanics of the story itself are not the focus here. It might be why this movie didn't actually do that well in theaters, despite the fact that it had a $90 million budget, one of the hottest directors in Hollywood, and huge names in the cast. It's a director-driven movie made by a primarily visual artist with very specific goals. So all that is to say that it's not that you can't write execution-dependent movies. You can. But how do you pitch that? You can't pitch it's going to be really good, trust me. As I mentioned in our pitch workshop with Scott Barkin, you can't just say, well, it'll be good. You gotta, when you're pitching stuff, and this is why you want to stick with those high-concept ideas, those are easier to hook someone with just the story elements. We don't have to say, it's going to be very well directed. The action scenes are going to be awesome. We don't have to say the cinematography will be really amazing, because we can't control those things. Those things aren't within our wheelhouse or our jurisdiction. So we have to try to hook people in with elements of the story alone. I hope that is clear what that distinction is between something very high concept, which is going to be something as simple as Kung Fu Guy in the Old West, or another high concept movie. I have some other examples on here. We might look at something like, what else did I have on my list? This is on my card on Perfect Premises. Here we go. How about this? Train to Busan. Zombies on a train. Zombies plus zombie movie, with all the drama that comes with that, on train. Setting that we haven't seen it before, automatically included the sense of urgency. Sort of very high concept right away. Idle Hands, super high concept pitch. Stoner gets his hand possessed. We have stoner comedy plus Evil Dead type Sam Raimi sort of supernatural horror movie. One thing meets one thing. The plot itself is enough to communicate what the essential idea of this is. Looks like we have some folks joining us. Thank you for coming by. If you're watching on Twitch, it looks like. You can join us on Discord at scriptcamp.net if you want to. So you can participate in the class, or we can see some comments on here. So hopefully you get... Do we have any questions? I just want to check in the chat. Does anyone have any questions about high concept versus execution dependent? Let me go back a couple slides too. Any questions? Frightful Fest says, a lot of low-concept films get nominated for Oscars. Yes, that is true. I don't usually hear these referred to as low concept. I should just say execution-dependent is usually referred to as the opposite of high concept. And that is often going to be because many execution-dependent ideas are executed at a very high level, because they are driven by stars, directors, action filmmakers, something like John Wick. The director is an old stunt coordinator, or an ex, stunt guy. So an execution-dependent idea doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It just means that if you're trying to break in as a writer, it's probably not the kind to focus on. Hope that's clear, but don't worry way too much about the specifics of this. This is something that you will just get a better sense of the more that you do this. Let's look at comps really quick. Comps are going to be this meets that. Comps are kind of stupid for the most part, but they're stupid fun, and as much as people make fun of them, they really still do use them. And they're also really important for setting the temperature of the expectations that you want people to have for your movie or pilot, because if we choose the right comps, then we're giving people a picture of what? The tone that you're going for, the specific approach that you're going for, the world and style of the story that you're giving us. I think that it's important when you're doing these. Part of what makes something high concept is that you're not picking chocolate and chocolate. Because let's take, for example, what if I said, I've got this great new fantasy movie. It's like Lord of the Rings meets Narnia. Why are those bad comps? Why is that chocolate meets chocolate? Any ideas? the same thing. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it, that you're pitching two of the same flavor. Two different types of chocolate. It's tough to understand why that might stand out and be really great. What you're usually looking for is chocolate plus peanut butter. And that's kind of at the heart of comps. Frightful says both authors were very good friends. Yes, that is true. C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were very good friends, though they disagreed about a lot. But in any case, yeah, so you can see how pitching something as one thing meets another of the same thing comes off as you're trying too hard, you're not giving us enough information, and you're not clarifying what makes your story unique and hooks us. That's what comps are going to be for. That's the peanut butter meets the chocolate kind of thing where we start to say, oh, I haven't seen those flavors together very much before. I mean, you have to imagine a Reese's cup at one point was a very, high concept idea. But we have to be like, oh, I can't quite imagine, or I haven't seen that before necessarily, but I can still imagine how that will taste new and great because it has those two different flavors together. So when you're doing comps, we try to skew towards movies that are more recent and popular in the zeitgeist, and older, or perhaps sometimes older ones that are more well remembered. Like you can comp Narnia or something like that if you want to, even though the movies there were from 15 years ago and were not that well received because it's just so old and elemental, people just know it. Or like Back to the Future is from the 80s, but you can comp it. You can comp a big movie from the 80s. You can comp The Godfather. Like, you can comp stuff that people just know. But don't try to show off here. You don't get bonus points if you have a comp that no one knows. And if your reader doesn't know it, you've just lost them a little bit. So just be careful there. But so let me pull something up here just as an example for you, or just bring something out as an example. So we might say, Lord of the Rings meets Narnia are bad comps because it's one thing meets one thing. It's nothing really high concept about that because that just sounds like fantasy adventure in secondary world, or perhaps portal fantasy to a secondary world where a bunch of heroes have to get together and defeat some evil villain. That's all we understand from that. But what if we start to pick a different flavor than chocolate, and we can start to really clarify the idea and the appeal of it and the heart of what makes it stand out and what makes it special. So let's take a different one. Let me hit you with this. I haven't read this short story yet. I love this author, but I have not read this short story of his because I've been trying to finish some other things I've been reading. But let me just pitch you this one. How about Fawn by Joe Hill? That's going to be our chocolate and peanut butter example. So this movie, or this short story, let's pretend like it's a movie though. It's Narnia meets The Most Dangerous Game. And now we start to bring people in and just start to lean in and say, what? How could those things work together? It's like a horror thriller set in a kind of like portal fantasy world. How does that work? And then we go into something like the Logline, which is a thrill-seeking hunter pays an immense sum of money to a mysterious guide who takes him through a door into a mystical world where he can track and kill mythical animals until his party becomes hunted themselves. Now that sounds cool. The basis of that is essentially Mr. Tumnus is sick of your bullshit, and now he's gonna kill you. I mean, sorry, like, I don't usually swear in classes, but that's just, I hope that communicates. I haven't read that yet, but I want to read it so badly. It sounds so cool. I can't wait to read a horror story about big game hunters who are, essentially going on a safari into Narnia to shoot and kill mythical monsters, and then they get hunted by a fawn, like Pan, or Pan's Labyrinth, or like Mr. Tumnus, hunting and killing the hunters. That sounds awesome. Why does that sound so much better? Well, because it's chocolate and peanut butter. It's not chocolate and chocolate. Does this make sense? Or does anyone have any questions or needs any clarification on how we should be thinking of comps, and how you should just more broadly be thinking of high concept ideas to be one thing meets something else that would modify and amplify that thing without seeming like it's overriding, like, oh, it's not going to be two of the same flavor again. So any questions on that? Looks like we got a comment from, I'm not sure what that's from some other, not from Discord, but from something. Thanks, Nacho. For me, when choosing a concept, this is from Atlas Cal. For me, when choosing a concept or idea, I know how I want it to end, so I take and combine different genres and already old concepts and come up with something that's never been done before. Sure, yeah, that's a great way to do it. There's always going to be like I'm going to say maybe 2 to 4 things on the list of stuff that we're choosing as the seed or the core of an idea. And it's like an algebra problem because you have, like, it matters the thing that you start with just determines which variable you start with filled in. Then you still might have an X, a Y, and a Z that you need to fill in whatever order, but you can start that seed from anywhere, and that's the basis of what this class is about. Pajama Mama says, curious what happens if you have an idea that doesn't have a comp, like nothing else exists similar in concept. You're probably wrong. There's gonna be a comp for almost anything, even if that comp is saying this is gonna be a crazy sort of out there thing like no one's seen before. You'd probably pick like a Charlie Kaufman movie to comp. If Charlie Kaufman movies are so far out that you can't even comp one of them, then your idea is too crazy. I'm sorry to say. There's just no, you've got something unworkable if you can't even comp it to anything at all. Chances are you're making poetry or some kind of experiment of some kind, and it does not at all sound like a feature film. Any feature film you write should fit into a genre, a really clear genre, and you should know the promises of every genre before you even attempt to write something in that genre, which is going to be a nice transition into just talking genre. So everyone, it actually caught me off guard a little bit how many writers who maybe have even written stuff before, maybe have written books before, maybe have written anything before, don't know what makes the genres tick. And it doesn't mean that you have to learn how every genre ticks. I can't tell you that much about romance stories because I just don't really write or I don't read them. I will watch and read stuff with romance subplots, but the romance genre to me is a little bit mysterious, and I don't really pay that much attention to it, and that's okay. I kind of do everything else, and you can pick like whatever broader range you want, but you should, in terms of career moves, you should typically, once you get started, try to start in one sort of area. It's okay if when you are getting going and you're learning how to write, you do whatever, do anything, try lots of different stuff. This is the great part of your career where you can actually do whatever you want, and it's fine because you're learning and experimenting. And in script camp boot camps, I say, pick something crazy that you think would never get made otherwise, or pick something that you've always wanted to see, some combination of genres that you just never think will get made, and that's fine because your first 10 scripts will be bad, and that's fine. The genre comes with a couple expectations, and like we need to be, so much of storytelling revolves around what the audience is expecting to get, and a good story is one where the audience gets the thing that they wanted, the thing that they signed up for, and there's nothing super complicated about that. When we're spending money on something, we want to get that thing, and so you have to know what it is that is inherently promised in the genre that you're offering. How about in terms of subject matter, emotional experience, tropes and archetypes and expectations, and you should know just what has been done before, or what the tropes are and how to subvert them or do them in different ways and show that you are aware of them, and you're not going to be blindsided into thinking that your ideas are so original that they've never been done before, when maybe it's a huge cliche in that genre, for instance. What else, though? So let's just go back into writing stuff in the chat mode, go back into interaction mode as we break down some of the promises of these different genres. Let's look at this wheel here. Where is it starting? It's on comedy, right? Okay. So in terms of comedy, what are some of the promises? Think in terms of subject matter, emotional experience, tropes and archetypes, anything else. What are the promises for comedy? What does comedy have to be? Frightful says jokes and heartwarming story. Okay, jokes I would say are part of the expectations. Heartwarming story can be. Not every comedy is going to be super heartwarming, and some sort of twist that, in fact, to make it funnier. The fact that it's so not heartwarming can be pretty funny too. So I wouldn't say heartwarming is at the core of the promise, but many of them are. Amanda says funny, absurd, and relatable. So absurd and relatable to me sounds sort of like different things, but I think what you're sort of getting at is that we're trying to ride the line between those two things. You're trying to find situations that are somehow both, that they are absurd and yet relatable, and that's part of the big challenge of it, for sure. Atlas Cal says love story. I don't think love stories are promised in comedies. A lot of comedies have love stories, but they don't have to. Let's look at just the core, the basics of the experience that you're offering. What are we trying to get people to do? How are we trying to get people to physically react? Lord Badger says humor mixed with interesting story. So I think we can say humor because any story we assume that promises it will be interesting because it's there to occupy if it's If it's something we're supposed to be spending money on, like a movie or a book or something, we want it to be interesting. That's the inherent promise of all of these. Make me laugh, says Coleman. Yes, you should. It makes the audience laugh. So I think that's really kind of the main thing for comedy. And some genres are more about subject matter. Some are more promising an emotional experience. So, like, for instance, subject matter, comedies can be about anything. Get there. There's no subject matter that you can't really go into in a comedy. Some might say there are some topics that are too dark to joke about, and some people would disagree and say, no, you can joke about those things. And I've seen comedies about everything from terrorism to suicide to abortion to, like, there's nothing you can't really do a comedy about. So subject matter, not really in the cards, not really in the promises. Really, what we're focusing on is emotional experience here. We want people to laugh and smile and be happy. We're trying to make people happy by the end of it. Tropes, expectations, and archetypes, there's tons of them. I think we all know a cliche joke when we see it or hear it. We know the guy slipping on the banana peel. We know the knock knock who's there. We know a bunch of comic tropes. And your goal is always going to be to interact with those and use our knowledge of them to surprise us again. Atlas Cow says, what about parody movies? Yeah, parody is just a subset of, or it's a subgenre of comedy. The part of the inherent promise of parody is that you will be aping some existing style or perhaps even some existing work in such a way that it will evoke those scenes and it will like feel like moments from that, but then it will sort of be making fun of that work or that genre or that style as well. So I think that's just what differentiates comedy, is that parody is a little more targeted. Like you have one thing that you're specifically making fun of. How about some other ones? What about thriller? What is a thriller? What is the subject matter, emotional experience, tropes, archetypes, or expectations? What do we expect from a thriller? And try to just mention things that it always is, not stuff that it optionally can be. So Relate to Shan says, shockers. Yeah, being shocked. We want to be shocked and surprised, definitely. Jump scares, you will see in a lot of thrillers, and mostly horror thrillers. Horror thriller is that combo where it has scare sequences, basically, but it is still a thriller. Suspense, yep. Suspense being that almost like physiological response in the audience where they're on the edge of their seat. Monica says, tense but not scary, violent but not too violent, sexy but not NC-17. Well, they can be all of those things. I mean, I would say most of the time they're not going to be as violent as a horror film, but they certainly can be. Tense but not scary. Well, they have to be tense. Some of them will be as scary as horror. A lot of the time they're not. Sexy but not NC-17. There's NC-17 thrillers. That's the keyword typically there. That's the difference between promise and expectation, is that promises are things that are just always there, always guaranteed, and some of those things are usually sort of part of it. Merrickson says, thriller is like a mild blend of action and horror. That can be a way to look at it. There is sort of a subgenre which I would call light thrillers, though, and that would be stuff like The Perfect Score, or there's a Thai movie called Bad Genius, or Whiplash, some would say, is a light thriller, or has elements of light thriller in certain sequences. And those are movies that have like a lower level of stakes. American Animals, light thriller. They have a slightly lower level of stakes. It's not going to be life and death. So I wouldn't quite call those horror, but they want to evoke a sort of similar physiological response. American Animals is a movie about guys trying to steal paintings from a library. It's not exactly life and death, but it makes you feel as tense as if it was. And that's what makes it a great thriller. Let's pick a few more. How about let's pick family. What about family movies? Or I guess often these will be animated, but they don't have to be. Family as a genre are often referring to light comedic action adventure films that oftentimes will star non-human characters, but it can be almost anything. What do you expect from a family film? Emotional, Atlas Cal says. Yeah, so these will almost always nowadays have a more of an emotional core. So there's going to be sort of stuff for the kids and stuff to make it more palatable to adults too, which might mean that emotional core, that journey that adults can relate to a little more. Merrickson says heartwarming. Yeah, most of the time they're going to be heartwarming. Very few family films have a tone that is bleak or unrelenting or painful or sore or leave you at the end feeling like, God, something has to change. Like, almost never will they have that vibe to them. Heartwarming is pretty much the promise for what the tone is going to be. Monica says family needs a mix because the kids and parents watch at the same time. Yeah, this is what I was just getting at. Pixar is the gold standard. 3-act arc with heartfelt conclusion. Yeah, so you want to have something for the kids and something for the adults, maybe a couple naughtier jokes that the adults will get. And I think Shrek really popularized that idea. And maybe, to some extent, Emperor's New Groove. Family-friendly soap opera. Yeah, I guess you might look at it as sort of a family-friendly soap opera. Let's do any others. So pick another one and just list off a couple of the expectations. Pick horror, romance, drama, mystery, action, sci-fi, or western, and just tell us what are some things that come with that. Show us that you understand the kinds of stuff that the audience is going for. I assume you're a fan of your own genre that you're writing in, so what do you look for? Why do you choose to pick something over something else? And what will you walk away upset if it didn't have in it? I'll pick one while you guys are writing some of these. And I'm going to pick horror just because that's sort of that's always going to be my number one genre, even though I feel like I barely write it nowadays because I skip around so much. That's always going to be what I come back to, and it's what I broke in with, and it's what I've written on the most. So with horror, you're expecting to be scared. We're going to scare the audience or unsettle them. It often will be because of a combination of suspense, dread, and disgust, like bloody, gory scenes. It doesn't have to have bloody, gory scenes, but that is often what we will get. We just are going to be unsettled, scared, and depending on the subgenre, we may want to deeply sort of think about its subject afterwards, or maybe we're just going for sort of a fun, good time. But even if it's just a lighter tone horror movie or a horror comedy, still something should be scary or attempting to frighten the viewer. Let's see. So Amanda says, I like adult animation like Rick and Morty, South Park, BoJack, because they dive into deep topics, even be preachy, but the animation and wacky concepts or components keep them funny and lighter. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at adult animation. Will often be a dramedy, like a darker dramedy, but have the kind of edge of lightness to it, or the crazy ways of exploring those dramedy ideas. Relate to Shans as romantic comedy. This is one of those genres that I don't know much about, and I don't really think I like, but I would like to learn more about. Cutesy, funny, and laugh. Yeah, then you end with a big dance scene, as far as I understand it. Isn't that one of the main sort of tropes? Everyone dances at the end, for some reason. Often there's a wedding at the end or something. Frightful says, horror transports you into the unknown. Cosmic beings and entities and nightmares. Yeah, that's sort of some of the subject matter we like to see there, for sure. Monica says, Westerns are interesting because it must be set in the dog days of Manifest Destiny. Well, some people would argue that, but sure. There are a lot of tropes, taming the wild, rugged, libertarian manhood, anti-hero versus hero, but really the main requirement of it are Colt revolvers, horses, big hats, awesome facial hair, and the rest is up to the writer. So yeah, Westerns are interesting because they are mostly a genre built of tropes, archetypes, and expectations, not as much on subject matter or emotional experience, though subject matter does definitely come up. Though I will say there are people that say neo-Westerns count as Westerns, in which case the whole Taylor Sheridan genre has sort of blown up what the time period and location that we might accept a Western as might be. But that's just all my Western nerd stuff I don't have to get into. Frightful says, wasn't there cowboys versus aliens? Yes, there was. It was not great, but that's a great high concept idea, at least. This thing meets that thing. It's a Western with aliens in it. It's that world clashing with that world, because that is at the core of what makes a lot of high concept premises work. Every time one world is clashing with the other world, then you're creating drama that is inherent to the premise that you've manufactured or created. Let's do some fun stuff. Loglines I won't get into too much because we're not focusing on these today. We're focusing on what is the big idea for the movie, not so much how do we phrase this one sentence that will guide you through it, but that's what it is. It's that one sentence expression of the idea of the story, in which case you have to answer certain questions and just make sure that you're communicating certain stuff in a very strict format. So we want to say main character, what is their goal, what are they trying to do? Often it takes the form of, well, I don't have to get into exactly what readers are looking for. I'll just bring up the template really quick. Often this goes like, when inciting incident, an adjective, protagonist must conflict before stakes. It's how we often write these. Don't worry way too much about that, but if you want to know what a logline is, we spend a lot of time on these at the beginning, making sure that we get that one sentence down, which is going to act as something to keep you on the same page, and to make sure you're not straying too far from your original idea, because ideas with stronger loglines are almost always stronger scripts. We're looking for a unique hook with the movie idea, which might be some sense of irony, it might be some new or surprising point of view, it might be some interesting or familiar mashup of elements that we already know about. It's going to be the strange clashing with the something known. That's going to be, Narnia meets Most Dangerous Game. We are sort of starting with the world of the first thing, and we are applying the tone or the approach of the second thing. Here's some of my loglines for my scripts that have all gotten me the most results in Hollywood. I don't think we have to spend way too long on these, though I'll take questions on them if anybody has them. Some of these are written by me and some were written by my manager. Anytime it's like 2 sentences or more, usually it's something written by their manager. And on big lists like Blacklist, often you'll see loglines that are not written by the writers. Those are written by their reps. So these are my scripts that I have gotten the furthest with. Peter and the Wolves 2017, that's what I broke into the industry with. The Tube was the next year, and I actually was nickel semifinal in 2019, and I took a lot of meetings and got a lot of requests from it. Hintline, I took meetings all over town for that script and have set up at a major production company. And then The Knowledge is my a more recent one that I wrote in early 2020 that I have not fully gone out with, but was actually set up at a production company for a short time. Anyway, the point is, these are some of mine, and you can maybe just get a sense that not all of them follow the exact same format, but those are just the questions that we will be wondering, and if you don't answer them, you should imply the answer to them, if you can. Here's a question. What about this logline? When a burned body with a slashed throat, is found in an apartment, a laid-back detective is thrust into a supernatural chase with an organ-removing serial killer who can stop time. Goodness, what do I think of this logline? So, I guess because somebody posted one, I'll give feedback on this real quick. We're not going to do full logline feedback today, but we have many, many classes and workshops that focus on this. But just because someone posted it, I am going to give you feedback on it. All right, when a burned body with a slashed throat, so don't start with that. It sounds like you're setting that up as the main character. Start with the main character. So or the inciting incident sometimes, when this thing occurs to this person. We want to know what is kicking the story off. So I like how you are saying when this corpse is discovered as the inciting incident up front, but it sounds weird if you start with a different character that's not your main character. Also, we want to avoid this passive phrasing. It is found in an apartment, usually when we can. Whoops, let me see if I can still read it. Okay. A laid-back detective. A laid-back detective? What genre is this? I would only think a laid-back detective would work in a comedy. It is definitely an interesting and unusual trait, but it's not one that seems like it connects him to this story in any way, and it feels like an adjective that you've not chosen with particular regard to what is making this story tick. Why would if we could pick any trait, why would you pick a laid-back detective? I assume he's going to get into such a high-stakes scenario very soon that being laid back will not... First of all, he can't be laid back and continue in the story. So is he going to be laid back after the midpoint? I'd be shocked. It just lowers the stakes, as Merrickson says almost immediately. Yeah, I think you're picking the wrong main character for this. A laid-back detective is thrust... Again, we want to avoid passive. Is thrust into a supernatural chase with an organ-removing serial killer who can stop time. Okay, is removing organs connected to stopping time in some way? It feels a little bit like I'm not sure why he's doing that. If you were saying something like, he's a time-traveling serial killer he has a time machine powered by people's blood, or something like that, I would start to see, oh, okay, that villain makes a lot of sense, and I can start to see how that doesn't feel like separate, like too many ingredients or too many elements. But right now I'm like, he steals people's organs, he stops time, our main character is laid back. This is going to be the easiest time that the serial killer has almost ever. He stops time and kills the detective. I mean, how's this movie quite working? I'm having trouble seeing this movie. I'm having trouble seeing how it would develop. I don't quite see the internal journey of the main character. I think you've chosen the wrong traits for describing the main character. And the villain sounds cool. A serial killer who can stop time does sound cool. But I'm not seeing what connects this main character to that journey. And the main character is who the most of our focus should be on. So my suggestion for you, flip this around, start with the main character, or start with an inciting incident that would be something like, when a time-traveling serial killer threatens his family, a detective must stop him before blank happens. It doesn't have to be exactly like that, but if you can phrase it in terms that will express the urgency to that extent, that you'll probably be better off. The serial killer stops time to remove the organs as revenge. Okay, so you're sort of saying he's not really... If he's getting revenge, he's less of a serial killer and more of a vigilante who has a specific agenda. So you might want to just describe this character differently or something like that. I'm going to move on from this for now and just refer you to our many other classes, workshops, and boot camps, which really focus on logline feedback. But just to give you like a bunch of, like a shotgun of feedback, there's a bunch of stuff off the top of my head. Thank you for sharing, though. I don't want to discourage people from sharing their ideas, and you definitely should post if you have stuff like that. But since today is more about the big idea and less about loglines, we're not going to, American has a great link for you there. The logline channel is the best place to get feedback for those. Okay, let's keep going. So, Sketchbook is not something we have to go into now, but I recommend starting this if you're like, what do I do to start writing my ideas down? Make one document on Google Docs, ideally, and start just including all of the links to pictures and videos and articles and whatever else you're going to use to inspire or do research for your work. Write down all your ideas for scenes and characters and locations and everything else, and you just want to keep all your notes in one place. So I'm not going to go too much into that now, but and in fact I'm going to skip ahead a couple slides and come back to this in a little bit, just because we're past the halfway mark and I've been going over setup stuff. I want to do some more interactive things. Okay, so let me get into perfect premise a little bit, and then we will go into some of our exercises and interactive activities. So what do I mean by perfect premise? This is something that I use to refer to movie ideas that have kind of everything that we're looking for and have this sort of beautifully packaged sense of, wow, what a fantastic concept that hits on all the beats that it should. Doesn't mean these are perfect movies. No, it does not refer to the execution of the storyline at all. And I like all these movies on here. I don't think they're all 10 out of 10s. I think some of them have various issues. Whatever. This isn't about the script. We're just talking premise and concept. And these are what I would consider perfect premises. Let me break down the elements of a perfect premise. And let me also just disclaim one more time. Just because something isn't a perfect premise doesn't mean it won't be good. It just means it doesn't on its surface have like this beautiful package for us to, that like it just invites the reader in such a wonderful way. So let me go into our story document here, and I'm going to share this with class, or this is actually what I call like our working shared Blackboard or something like that. And let me share this with everyone just in case you can't read it, so you can follow along and read what we're writing on here. And you can, if you're on a different service besides Discord, you can join us on Discord if you want to get the link, or you can just watch along on my screen here. But so there's a couple things that we are going to really need to construct what I call a perfect premise. And what that breaks down to is we want to have a hook, a character, a journey, and then what I might call like the icing or the frosting on top. I'm not sure what the best words for this are, but this is just we might call it the bow on top, something like that. And that's going to be the last thing. Usually it's a title, which will clarify that. And that's going to be the thing that brings everything home and makes it feel really cohesive and just like a fantastic movie idea. So let's look at my perfect premises. I think I want to start with let's start with Last Night in Soho. Now this movie is the new Edgar Wright supernatural thriller. I thought the movie itself is good. It has some holes in it, and I don't know if it is like a 10 out of 10 story. It's probably like a 7.5 story, but execution is just amazing. It's completely beautiful, and the premise is such a strong element of it. So let's go over Last Night in Soho, the supernatural thriller. So there's a couple things here. Earlier I was saying, how do we convince someone to watch your movie? We've seen a million supernatural thrillers before, or a million thrillers before. So how do we communicate with this one as well? There's a couple elements right off the bat. There is the hook. The hook is, it's sort of a murder mystery, right? But the murder happened in the past. And our main character is a girl who's having psychic visions of something in the past, of the last days of this singer's life. She starts to experience these psychic hallucinations, and she's going to have to use those visions as the clues to figure out who killed that girl, because the murder is still at large. That's the hook. The hook is, the girl needs to use psychic visions of the past to solve a murder in modern day. Now, we can expand the other elements of that too. So let me actually write that down. So let's go away from this slide and go down to right here. So, hook. Girl must use psychic visions of the past as clues to solve a cold case murder. What else do we have? The character. She's a sheltered fashion student. Somebody that you wouldn't think would be able to solve a murder mystery, probably. Somebody who is particularly vulnerable, or somebody who has an uphill climb to go on, or some kind of ironic journey to make there. Well, she has both of those things. One, she is a sheltered girl from the country. She's not from the big city, and is moving to the big city for the first time. And she also has an ironic journey to there's an ironic element to her journey because she idealizes or idolizes the 1960s. She's a fashion student who wants to make, dresses and clothes like they used to do in the old times. She listens to old records. She's obsessed with 60s culture. And so the ironic journey of the character is going to be she needs to sort of come to realize that we can't idealize the past too much, that bad things happen, that, no matter what era you're in, it's not all roses and, peaches and cream or whatever. You have to see the good and the bad of every era. History, life is complicated. You can't just keep your rosy glasses on all the time. So there's both a character that this is going to be more difficult for, and some kind of ironic internal journey. Some girl who idealizes the past comes to experience a murder in the past that represents the worst of the world that she idealizes. Next we have the journey. So that's like the heart of that, really, which is she needs to learn that these 60s aren't all glamorous. Every era has its dark parts, and we can't over idealize any part of history. Okay, so that might be what we're looking at as her sort of internal journey that we're suggesting for the character. And the last thing we need is that kind of icing. The icing is like the thing that brings everything together, the frosting or the bow on top, whatever you want to call it. And that is going to be a snappy title, will often be the icing if it is, because often if the story is really working on a high concept level, there is just some title that will emerge as the only title for that thing. Think of a show on Amazon like Transparent. It's about someone's parent who comes out as trans and all the drama that comes from that. And the idea of being transparent, meaning you can see through somebody or see through something, hinting at this idea of honesty and truth. So, transparent, perfect title, perfect premise. So, a snappy title means more than one thing, or hints at the genre, or, the direction of the story, and just generally draws interest. And, last night refers to both something that happened in the past, but it might also mean last night equals your final night, as in we're going to be using clues based on the last couple nights of a girl's life. And Soho is where the story takes place, part of London. Okay, so I hope that we can see here how everything comes together to just make this an amazing package. Because an idea for a movie is more than just a title and is more than just one sentence description. It's all of these things together that work in tandem to create something that just screams, you've got to check this out. You've got to read this. Everything is here. And I can see the movie. I can see the journey that we're about to go on. I can expect the kind of thrills, and I'm excited to show up for that on opening night. Questions about perfect premises? In the chat, Monica says, the defining cultural element of the 60s is massive generational and political tension, so not sugar and roses. Yep, well, this is what the main character of this movie has to learn, because her vision of the 60s is kind of, cool clothes, cool cars, cool music. That's the journey she goes on, is figuring out the sort of truth, all the exploitation that is particularly in her the area of London that she is most interested in, the sort of Soho nightlife area, which she thinks is so glamorous and so cool. Okay, I guess there's no questions on this. Let's go over maybe one more, and let's look at Train to Busan. So the hook is where we probably start with this one. It's super easy. Hook, zombies on a train. And then we have your character, and you might just sort of pick a character who will have, remember, something particularly difficult they need to do, or some ironic twist to the journey that they need to go on. So in this one, we're going to go with irony. We're going to go with absent, or let's think, what would be something really difficult to do in a zombie apocalypse, especially on a moving vehicle? Protect someone. Okay, so let's pick the least likely character to protect someone. It's someone who needs to learn how to protect someone, or that he must protect someone, or the value of it. And we'll say absent dad. And let's look at journey. Needs to learn that his daughter is worth every sacrifice. And last, we have the kind of icing here. It's sort of already there. The hook is zombies on a train. And so I think that the title might not be that last icing element, just because a lot of international people just don't know what is Busan, right? So maybe it's missing that last layer of icing, which would be some cool pun that references locomotion and also the Living Dead or something like that. But don't worry way too much about that. Just look for as many of these elements as you can get together. This is a very basic construction of a story. Zombie apocalypse survival movie. Absent dad. Put the dad with a central relationship, because almost always central relationship will galvanize a non-functional logline. So now we have a dad, an absent father needs to escort and protect his estranged small child through this nightmarish survival scenario where he has to stay on the train until they get to the safe city that they're going to, but they're constantly being attacked by zombies. So we see the internal journey, we see the external journey. We have a clear vision of the time frame of the walls and the boundaries of the story. Well, it takes place on these vehicles, and sometimes when they get off at a station or something, it is contained. Its ticking clock is part of the premise. At some point, they are not stopping. They will get to their destination, which is the city of Busan. So another slam dunk premise for feature film. If there's no questions about this, and let me check to make sure there's not, then we'll move into some more fun stuff. So I'm not sure what this comment means from Atlas Cow. Have some alone time with the significant other. Not sure what that refers to, or maybe it was in reference to something I said before. So let's keep going on this and move into our premise games. This is kind of what we were getting at today, and I've put the whose line is it anyway background down here just to kind of emphasize the idea that this is all. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be perfect. It's all made up and the points don't matter, as we sometimes say. You can't think too much when it comes to improv games or when it comes to stuff like this, where I'm just like, someone shout out a movie title. Then you just gotta speak, just write something. It doesn't have to be great. There's no grades being given. It's all made up. The points don't matter. Okay, so let's do this activity. If this works, we'll see how this goes. I want to have everybody in the chat write down a bunch of titles for movies and include a genre next to it. And when you're doing this, don't think too much. You're not trying to come up with anything good. Try to just write down a bunch of movie titles and put them in the chat without even thinking. You can say like Snack on the Grass comedy. How about one called Beetle in a Cup? And that's going to be a drama. We do one called The Man in the Plane. That'll be action. See what I mean? Just start putting stuff like that in the chat. I want to have a bunch to pick from. Don't make them good. If you make them too good, this isn't any fun. Just start saying stuff. Go. Oh, I like these so far. Wait in the Water. That's a cool title, Azima. The Last Temptation of Alex. Dark comedy. He's Not That Into You, romantic comedy. That already exists. Hang on. There's already a movie called He's Not That Into You. That's a romantic comedy. Charlie and the Toothache. That's a fun one. Angelic Flare. Keep going. I want to see a bunch of these. Just don't even think. Just write stuff down. I'm gonna make the chat really big. Love and Tuna Fish. Oh, that's cool. Forever Dead. That's a nice one. Here She Comes. Ice Cream Monster. Can't Wait Till You're Dead. Ooh, nice. Last Man Sitting. What could that mean? We need a genre on that one. Maybe Tomorrow. Twisted Fate of the Nephilim / Demon Hybrid. Burgers Please Me, a fantasy film. Chicken or Turkey comedy. Okay, I'm going to pick some of these, and I'm going to do one as an example, and then I'm going to pick one of our boot campers to do another one. And you don't get to choose your own. I'm going to choose for you, so you can't think too much. Okay, so I'm going to just scroll through, and I'm going to pick the first one that my eyes fall on, and I'm not even going to think too much about it. Unless it sucks, then I'm going to pick another one. All right, let's do it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the hook, journey, or let's say hook, character, journey, and then sometimes we'll want to have icing, but we don't always need to have icing on it. All right, so I'm just going to scroll a bit, and I'm just going to pick one randomly. Oh, there's a bunch of great options. Let's do this one. Last Man Sitting. All right, let's do Last Man Sitting. So Last Man Sitting is a comedy, so I'm going to just come up with the idea on my own as an example for what I'm about to call on someone to do. So bear with me for 1 second. All right, so Last Man Sitting. In what circumstances do people need to remain sitting and not stand up? Sometimes they have contests, like we have to be touching a car in a mall or something like that for a long time. What other situations does someone have to stay sitting? Outside of games like musical chairs or things like that, why would someone have to stay sitting? Maybe a test or like an academic situation of some kind? Feel free to throw out suggestions in the chat if you want to. But for this one, I'm going to say, because it's a comedy, we're going to do Last Man Sitting. That's going to be set at a music festival. And we'll say, someone says musical chairs being held hostage, musical chairs tournament. Yeah, musical chairs seems like the first thing that my brain was leaping to, but that's why I'm trying to actually dodge a little bit away from it and find some other reason that people need to sit. Actually, maybe music festival isn't the right idea. Why do people need to remain sitting? Last Man Sitting. Or it actually could be, let's do a boycott movie. Hang on. So I'm sure there are movies that touch on the idea of the massive boycotts and sit-ins in the civil rights movement. Because this is going to be a comedy, then we're going to have to make this about boycotts and sit-ins in a way that is slightly making it a little bit lighter or bringing some kind of comedic perspective to that idea of just boycotting stuff. Because when you have a bunch of people go into a place of business and all sit down and refuse to buy anything, that's a form of social protest that was employed a lot in U.S. history and around the world in various forms. So Last Man Sitting, we're going to do a movie about boycotts. So let's pick let's see what we have first. And for this, I'm going to start with character, I think. I'm going to go with an extremely principled guy with a bone to pick and a point to make. Let's give him about some cause that he cares a lot about, though, that either is way over exaggerating or way under exaggerating his reaction to something. So let's say this guy, he's going to be a man who is sitting. Boycott. What is he? He's going to boycott something humorous. Here, some suggestions in the chat. Something completely stupid, protecting the Whoopee Cushion Museum from being demolished. Yeah, okay. Let's make it a prank museum. So let's say he's going to be the owner of a prank museum. Protests, or let's say maybe he's just a big prankster. I'm doing badly with this one. This is a tough one. I didn't think it would be. So let's say a legendary prankster, past his prime. This is going to be a guy who was really famous for doing pranks when it was like the 80s, and now he was like Dennis the Menace as a kid. Let's say a grown-up Dennis the Menace. That's kind of fun. A grown-up Dennis the Menace type sad sack protests the shuttering of his favorite prank factory through a series of increasingly extreme boycotts. Or let's say, civil disobedience. So this guy is so upset that they're closing his favorite whoopee cushion factory that he's going to stage bigger and bigger events in an effort to try to keep it open. So this is a very stupid idea, but we can sort of see the basics of the principle of what we're doing just from picking that one seed and then figuring out everything else. So we've sort of come up with the hook here, which is he's going to use a series of increasingly extreme civil disobedience methods. disrupt the let's say destruction or demolition of his favorite factory. Who has a favorite factory? So let's look at what his journey might be. So this is going to be a guy that probably has to let go of the reason that he's doing this in the first place. He's doing a dumb thing, and comedy can be very much about losers and stuff. So let's say he needs to grow up and start taking life seriously. Not everything can be a prank. Last Man Sitting. I'm not sure if this fits with the title as much anymore, but let me see how well does this hold together for something I'm essentially improvising. A stubborn man uses a series of increasingly, let's say, yeah, I think that works. Uses a series of increasingly extreme civil disobedience methods to disrupt the demolition of his favorite factory. A grown-up Dennis the Menace sad sack protests the shuttering of his favorite prank factory. Okay, let me just put that as the character, so it's going to be a grown-up Dennis the Menace type sad sack who needs to learn that not everything can be a joke. All right, so pretty bad movie idea right there. But hopefully you guys will see the idea of what I'm trying to communicate here, which is you can start from almost anywhere. You don't need a good title to come up with a working premise. Sometimes with this game, you actually come up with something that ends up accidentally being good. Somebody says they don't see me typing in the doc. That's because I'm typing in the wrong doc, but hopefully we can see it on the stream at least. Let me paste this into the other doc. Why is it so hot in my room? Good lord. I'm covered in sweat. I'm going to turn the air conditioning on. I'll be right. 1 second. Okay. So any questions about this process of coming up with a movie idea using the hook, journey, character sort of method of breaking the story? Lazima says maybe he wants to keep his favorite burger joint open and uses a fake protest to stop it from being closed. Oh, maybe there's something there. Yeah, the idea of having a favorite burger joint's a little more of a relatable character motivation to having a favorite prank factory. Did I paste this in the right document? No, I didn't. This header's just getting in the way, isn't it? Okay, so it's challenging to come up with a working premise just based on some silly nonsense, but it's a good exercise, and I play this game with my friends all the time. I'll just be like, say some words, say them, don't think, just say them, and then you use that to come up with the whole idea. Sometimes you get absolute garbage, sometimes you get something kind of good, but it's good to just sort of build those muscles. I think just because I felt that last one was so lame, I want to do one more, and then I'll pick a boot camper to do one of these with me. Let me scroll back up and see what we get with these. Let me just pick this one here. Let's do, what does this say? Can't Wait Till You're Dead, horror movie. All right, great. So Can't Wait Till You're Dead. Whoops. How do I paste this? Okay, Can't Wait Till You're Dead. So that's kind of fun. That sounds like, if you can't wait till someone is dead, to me that sounds sort of like it's somebody that you're waiting to die for a long time, and you can't wait meaning like you're excited for someone to die. So let's make this about an old couple who have grown to hate each other. This is almost like Raw Dolls the Twits. So let's make this about an old couple. Let's make it, we have got to pick one or the other. Let's pick the little old lady. Old lady and husband, let's say a nice granny, and her husband hate each other more than anything in the world. And I think that this is going to be Can't Wait Till You're Dead. They're planning to kill each other. That's kind of fun. They're both this is almost sounding like a horror comedy now, but they're both planning to murder each other. What if they hire the same hitman? They hire the same killer to deal with each other. And let's say, because this is horror and we have to make sure we're delivering on the emotional promises of that, let's say they hire a serial killer, actually. Maybe that'll be a little bit better. They hire the same demented killer. Let's say it's a serial killer who advertises on Craigslist or something. They hire the same demented killer to take each other out. And maybe in the chaos of that situation, they end up falling back in love. That's really fun. It does sound more like a horror comedy, but they both can't wait till the other one dies, so they both hire the same killer who then tries to kill both of them, and then they need to end up working together to live. That's almost good. Come on. Let's see some comments. Monica says there's a Danish horror comedy where a married couple hires the same Russian hitman to kill them. Oh no, I just came up with that. Except in mine, I guess he's a serial killer, so not exactly a Russian hitman, but you get the idea. That's kind of fun. Can't wait till you're dead. Couple. Wait, what was I just writing on? Was that in Chrome? That was in the wrong doc again. I have too many docs open. I'm going to close this one. Okay, so what was that? Can't wait till you're dead. So, I think for this one we have the hook, which would be nice Granny, and we'll make him sort of, we're going to do the Eustace and Muriel Courage the Cowardly Dog setup. We'll say nasty husband, hire the same demented killer to take each other out. In the chaos, they end up falling back in love. We have that's sort of the journey, I suppose. That's where it goes. So we'll say to survive the night, they must work together and end up falling back in love. And icing is this nice little title, Hook Journey, and we have character. We'll say nice Granny, who has become estranged from husband over the years. They want to recapture that magic. Alright, so this is much better. I think I redeemed myself. What do you guys think? The game doesn't have any actual winners or losers. This is just it's more of an exercise to improvise movie stories based on just those few seeds that you have. And the important thing is just to not think too much and just to sort of pick something and try to fill in the blanks. All right, do we have any boot campers who want to volunteer? Anyone who is in one of the other programs for instance, feature or TV?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, we'll have Lazima. I think I called on Amanda earlier, so let's do Lazima for now. Let's, Monica. Okay, we'll do Monica next. So let's start with Lazima. So you want to scroll through the suggestions and just pick a weird title?
Oh, I thought you were going to pick it. Okay.
I can pick it for you if you want me to.
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So how about we do... where are they? Here they are. It's called The Movie You Never Asked For. It's by Frightful Fest of Fears. And it's a comedy according to him, but if you have a great idea for what that could be, that's not a comedy, you can try it. But The Movie You Never Asked For. All right. So, we have hook, character, and journey. You can fill them in whichever order you want to, but just start talking. What does this make you think of?
Okay, so I'm thinking like a guy wanting to make a film. Like he's a film student trying to make his first film on his phone.
Got it.
Amateur film student. But like he has a crush on this girl. Kind of want to make it for her. It's a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wants to make it for her. He gets a lot of he chooses a couple of his friends to film it. Let's see what's the hook though.
Yeah, so let's look at the title. The Movie You Never Asked For. That sounds to me like he's making something unpleasant, doesn't it? Or maybe someone doesn't want him making it.
Yeah, someone doesn't want him making it. So, okay. Right, so I'm thinking okay, so he's
maybe he's making a series of movies for someone who doesn't. Maybe what you just suggested, where he's making it for a girl, maybe it's sort of anonymous. Maybe you could go that route.
Okay.
Like, you know, secret notes sort of thing, and she doesn't even know who is making these little films about her. Or is that creepy?
That is creepy.
So you
Okay,
can go
so
that direction.
maybe.
You can go whichever way you want with it.
Ooh, how about this guy has like a film diary, and right, he has a film diary, and basically someone like gets a hold of all his films and then creates a film, like a movie about it, and like shows it in the school or something like that, or
Oh,
shows
so
it.
like someone finds his private stash of movies that he's made on his own and sort of exposes them?
Yes.
Okay. So
So like,
go ahead.
yeah, so the movie I guess can be about him on his whole like him doing certain things, like doing things with the diary, and we kind of know there's like some secrets that he does that we don't see, but we see him going different places and doing weird things. Um, like we know what's the contents of the diary, like we know what's the contents of the video because that's like the basic of the movie. This guy goes around filming himself and like this like or whatever, and then like someone they find his videos and they make a movie of it,
Okay.
show it.
And the conflict is
like he kind of like okay, the conflict is that he's getting like deep information from different people in the town, and they like tell him like special things that no one should know about. And it uncovers a secret
okay.
That about a particular person in the town, maybe let's say the mayor, was doing something.
It's getting a little complicated with this, so I think that
Okay,
what we should
okay,
do is
this
maybe
is
take a
okay.
step back and just look at the real basics.
All right.
If it was like someone found all my this is a comedy, remember? If somebody found all my movies, what would I not want the school to know? You're a furry. You're a, you know, think of something simple that would like ruin his reputation, or like I don't know.
I like the furry.
Maybe we do. Maybe the furry. Maybe he's super into weird anime. Like, what would you want the whole school to not know about you?
Okay, so yeah, let's say he's a furry or something like that.
Okay.
I like that. I mean, that's fun.
I've never seen it in a movie before, so there you go. So private work and exposes it to the school. Wow, that would really be the movie that nobody asked for. So
and he records himself masturbating to his mom.
Oh, wasn't the furry thing bad enough? All right, well now I think we're maybe pushing it a little into very. I mean, it's funny, but it is maybe just drifting from the premise a little bit. So
Okay.
I think that video production student. This could even be the thing where like a video production student has a laptop hooked up to the projector in front of the whole school, and then either someone does it on purpose and they like see his secret file and they're like, oh, what if I project that instead? Or it could be just an accident, right, where maybe he does it himself, or you know, one of his friends clicks the wrong button and projects his private material in front of the whole school. So now we have to ask ourselves, what is the movie? Because that's like the inciting incident, right? So if the inciting incident is going to be when an aspiring film student has his reputation ruined in school by, you know, everyone thinks he's a sexual deviant now, what does he have to do in order to solve that problem?
Oh my God! What if someone sees it? One of the teachers sees it and wants him to make a film about it because his identity is really revealed in it.
So either a film about his, like, sort of maybe the guidance counselor is like, no, if that's you need to make a movie that says this is who I am and I'm loud and proud. Or it could be that he needs to make like he's in trouble with the school and they assign him to make a movie about sexual deviancy as like a PSA, as like a form of punishment. So now he has to make a movie saying that's like sort of cracking down on inappropriate material in school or something like that. I do like that. So the hook is going to be discredited film student must make a new movie to fix his reputation. I like having to make a movie to fix your reputation. That's cool.
That's cool.
Let's say he's the laughingstock of the school. So amateur film student turned laughingstock.
Yeah.
And that way, maybe we could see the journey. We're starting to see a little bit of one where maybe through the process of making this film, he actually does come to accept himself and say, you know what, if everyone else has a problem with it, that's their problem. I'm not hurting anyone. Like, my interests are valid. You know, that would kind of be a fun journey for a comedy, I feel.
Yeah.
Any other ideas on this one?
Maybe he has like a funny animal, like a funny pet that he talks to. I like that for some reason. I don't know why I always.
Did you say a pet?
Something. Like a weird pet that he talks to. Like a weird pet in it.
Okay. Well, I could see that maybe he does have a strong affinity for animals. Hopefully it won't be a furry pet, because then people are going to give him weird looks and think he's banging his pet, maybe. But if it's a sure, maybe he's got a little sidekick. Nothing against furries, by the way. I don't mean to make fun of anyone's personal preferences that aren't hurting anyone, but it just is something that I'm sure a high schooler would be mortified if anyone found, which is why I think it's working as an idea for a comedy film. Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, I think this is working. I like the laughingstock as the main character. That just, there's nowhere to go but up from there, and especially for a comedy, because comedy is so much about losers and the people we're laughing at. If we can make the characters start at that place, then it makes us feel an immense amount of sympathy for him. All right, nice job with this. Thank you, Lazima. Movie you never asked for. What would the poster of this look like? Thank you for that title. I think that was Frightful Fest who gave us that. Monica, you want to do it?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to pick a title for you from all the suggestions. The Diary of the Lost Car. That's cool, Atlas. Thank you for that. The Diary of the Lost Car. There's no genre attached to it, so I'm going to give you a genre. You like horror and thriller, so I'm going to tell you it's a thriller called The Diary of the Lost Car.
Diary of the Lost Car.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, there are a couple of different ways I could go with this. Number one is like the car is somehow alive and it keeps a diary, which is interesting, but I'm not sure that's where we want to go. The other is maybe there is a mysterious car. Like in Harry Potter, there is the Room of Requirement that appears when you need it. Maybe there is this ghost car that arrives when you need it, but its toll that it exacts from you is that you have to write in the journal what you've been doing. And if you do not, the car will become very angry. I don't think I want to do Christine. That's already like a little too cartoony. But maybe the car will curse you. And until you write in the journal, you will have immense, terrible, grotesque bad luck. So let's see. The hook is this cursed car. That's the hook. Mm-hmm. Then the character is going to be someone who is down on their luck somehow. Maybe it is a person who was...
Let me ask you this.
Really...
I love what you started with for the car that shows up when you need it. It's like Uber or Lyft for when you're really in trouble. So who's somebody who really, really needs a ride? And that would make an amazing opening scene. Think of a woman is walking home at night and someone's following her, right? Think of you're really badly hurt, your kid is really badly hurt. That's someone who needs a ride more than anyone, right? There's no cell service. Wait, a car just shows up. Great couple opening scenes. And I think that maybe you should design your main character based on that opening thing and just give you a great launch pad into the rest of this.
Well, and I think also what sort of needs to happen is we need to get this character into the car, have them go on their journey, and then at the end of it, maybe they no longer need the transportation. So this person is desperately trying to get the car to show back up, but the car does not believe in their cause anymore. So until the car shows back up, you can't write in the journal and break the curse. So I think really the issue
is to find the car again, or make it.
There we go.
If the external journey of this is I need to find this ghost car again, that's interesting. I like that.
And I also like the angle that you gave at the beginning. That's maybe someone running away. So let's have a serial killer.
Oh, serial killer. Okay.
A serial killer that only kills twins has killed this person's twin sister long, long ago. Must complete the set. This killer never leaves a twin still alive. So maybe this person has entered the witness protection program. The killer has found them. The car has shown up, taken them somewhere, and now where is the killer? Where is the car? And we've got sort of a triangular opposition here, where the person is running away from the killer and running toward the car.
I'm a little worried with the serial killer angle that you're splitting the high concept premise into too many things. Serial killer that only kills twins sounds like a different movie, whereas
fair enough.
Ghost car, like if those two things came from the same source, which I talked about in my sci-fi class, maybe it would feel a little more cohesive. Like it's the owner of the car who's trying to get it back, or something like that, and he's the serial killer. It'd be almost like Charlie Manx from Nosferatu by Joe Hill. But I would lean away from serial killer and ghost car movie. Usually, just because that feels like separate premise. I think you have enough with the heart of ghost car that shows up when you need it, but exacts some kind of cost on you that you don't expect. That's so strong. The serial killer stuff is making me disengage rather than engage. So not to give. There's no right or wrong answers on here, but that's just like I just want to give that as a general note to people. If you start adding more ingredients, sometimes it starts to make the audience disengage a little bit if it sounds like that's something that could be a whole separate movie on its own.
Okay, so what we need...
do that, but just if that affects you, if that gives you a different idea or pushes you in a different direction, then...
Another idea is you could have a character that needs to get somewhere far away. Maybe they're a musician that has a job waiting for them far away in another state if they can only get there. But they can't get there, and they're trying to hitchhike their way across the country. That's a very, kind of 70s road movie style. And you could meet a terrible person along the way that gives you a ride and is going to kill you or rape you or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the ghost car shows up out of nowhere. She bonks the rapist on the head with the item nearest by, gets into the ghost car, drives away. That makes all of that work. And then she gets to the place she's going to, where she has this musician job waiting for her. The band has a van, so she doesn't really need a ride anymore. She's got everything taken care of. But now they're cursed. And the band, now it's an ensemble, have to figure out a way to find the car. And maybe by the end, what they're going to do is they're going to wreck their van on the day of a gig and wait for the ghost car to show up.
Okay, that's a fun idea.
Something like this.
Yeah, I like this. This is great. So this is almost
anyway.
A plot point in what is it? Inside Llewyn Davis, isn't it? Where he's a musician who gets a gig on the other side of the country and has to just hitch rides with people for a while. So yeah, let's maybe make this a period piece, because that would I think that it was much harder to just get a ride when you needed one in the past. And so if this was set in the 60s or 70s, that would be kind of maybe ideal for this. So if we have a character, let's just do the musician thing. So musician down on her luck, trying to get across the country, or hitchhike across the country. So she's pursued by a...
Assaulted by a stranger.
Okay.
Just assaulted by a stranger, because then assaulted could mean sexually assaulted, it could mean physically assaulted, it could mean like attempted murder, it could mean anything.
He's chasing her. Assaulted by a stranger, and she gets into... So yeah, let's make that the trying to hitchhike across the country. Great. And if we pick a trait for her that will imply an ironic journey, to me this it sounds like it's a movie that's like, don't trust strangers, don't get rides from strangers. So maybe she's too trusting or too gullible, or has a naive view of the world or something like that, where this journey will be her becoming more guarded and realizing I can't just take free rides. Maybe that's the journey.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Yeah, we've got like a very naive, trusting person. Maybe we could even have a flashback to a grandma who told her, "Oh, you can't trust strangers, darling." Blah blah blah. And that way, we would have like a hook point at the very beginning where grandma says, "You have to learn to do for yourself and not rely on strangers, because someone will take advantage of you." and that's sort of the lesson she ends up learning. I think that's a reasonable thing, and also I think that she can learn to have real friends, because at the beginning of this movie, this is a lonely person that is trying to trust in the kindness of strangers to get her across the country. So maybe she has trouble maintaining relationships. She doesn't have friends. She burns her bridges because she's very self-centered, and then through this process, learns that she needs to be thinking about other people, and in so doing, maybe the car will reappear. And she writes at the end of the movie her journey through the movie, and that's the end. And now it's sort of become kind of a sentimental comedy band movie, not really like a big or a thriller thing. But I think it works with the premise I've set up.
Okay, great. So yeah, we don't need to go all the way to the endings, I guess, if we're just coming up with premises, but good to have those things in mind if that helps inform you figure out what would happen in the journey in the first place. What was this called again? Diary of the Lost Car. Great. Okay. So, very cool. I would actually watch that one, or somebody write that one. That one's cool. Amanda says, what if the killer uses the car that appears when people need it, and we need to find out where it went? That might be a totally different take, but good to have these different takes. Okay, I want to just open this up for questions from anyone. Is this one of our biggest classes that we've had? We had a ton of RSVPs to this class for reasons that we still are trying to figure out exactly why. We don't really know why this was such a popular class, but I'm glad it has been. I hope that you guys have enjoyed coming up with movie ideas based on these silly titles with us, and maybe learned some stuff about screenwriting. I just want to open it up to any questions about anything we've talked about today, about Script-Camp, about premises. What do you guys want to know? You can, at this point, feel free to unmute and ask over voice if you would like as well. Somewhat Trashy says, you know a good way to figure out the character's main flaw. So most of the time, like we were just doing, you want to pick a main flaw that's interacting with what we're doing in the story. Look at what the hook is and see what that journey they have to go on is, and ask yourself, what is a lesson that would teach? So, or like, what is some truth that would emerge from watching that happen? So, ghost car movie, a movie about accepting a ride from a stranger, putting you in a dangerous situation, is probably going to lead us to the conclusion that you shouldn't take rides from strangers. Who's somebody who would really have to learn that? Somebody who's too trusting. So that's how I would pick your main character's flaws for the most part, as part of that math equation that is going to help you build out the perfect premise. Look for what trait is going to make this journey particularly difficult or ironic for the main character. Coleman asks, there's a part 2 tomorrow. Is that the same class over again? It'll have different stuff, but it'll be this same sort of thing. Premises, coming up with premises, exercises. It won't be the exact same lecture, though. Monica says, I want to give everyone else a chance, but if there's time I came up with a new concept I'd love feedback on. I think I might be writing it next. Okay, I mean, if we have a few minutes left and no one else has any questions, I'm glad to look at that, but probably you should take it to the upcoming lab to get the most one-on-one feedback. That's Saturdays from 4 to 6 Pacific time. Let's see if we have any other questions first that anyone wants to know. Anything based on what we've talked today that you guys want to know about? So while you're typing or thinking of your questions, we do have upcoming weekday classes. As Nato just mentioned, these are filling up, so make sure to RSVP to How to Analyze a Script, which is a live 2-day class that is going to help you figure out ways and tactics for analyzing a story, figuring out what's working and what's not. That'll be July 27th and 28th. That's a week from today. We also have a brand new class on crime movies on the 25th of August, and that upcoming interview with Logan Martin on August 3rd. No questions from anyone? Okay, well, I'll keep doing announcements and bookkeeping stuff. If you have questions, let us know in the chat or unmute if you want to in the meantime. So, Feature Bootcamp, we have a couple weeks left of this one, but the current session is done by August 19th. So, this is the general schedule for that. We write The first half of class is on outlining and figuring out what happens in every single page of the script. That's how methodically we must architect our stories before we start, to give yourself the best fighting chance of getting through it and in a reasonable amount of time, and not leaving yourself lost in the woods at the middle of the movie. So the feature boot camp, first half is outlining, second half you're writing the script, and that's going to be like once you start writing at the halfway mark, you're writing 20-ish pages a week for, you know, give or take a few, for the 4 weeks of class and for the week that follows our final meeting. So you really have more like 10 weeks to write a feature with this program. You should sign up. That's like the basic bread and butter of Script Camp is feature boot camp. It's like how to write a movie 101. What else do we have? If you're looking to sign up, scriptcamp.net/classes to buy a class on its own. Or, like we said, membership would be great if you signed up for that, which gives you access to every single thing we do here with no restrictions. And you get a 2-week free trial with that. So let us know if we have any interest in that, and you can sign up. And we have t-shirts as well. If anybody is interested in a Script Camp t-shirt, you can get one for free. Just message Nacho your size and your location. We also have writers groups in the server now, which are things like Comedy Pilot. We have sketch comedy writers. We have horror, and we have an animation writing group as well. You can start your own group, or you can join an existing group. Just use our form that we have here, or just message the creator of that group on the server. We want to sign up for this short film bootcamp that's coming up. So scriptcamp.net/event/short-bootcamp. You can see a link in the chat right there. If you're interested in writing a 10-page short film, hey, maybe just sign up for your unlimited membership right before the class starts, and you can go to the first 2 sessions of it as part of your free trial. You want to write a story between 1 and 10 pages long that will be ready to shoot, perhaps. If you want to make a film, that's a great thing to do. If you want feedback, we have plenty of ways to get it in the server. You can post in Features Pilot Scripts, which is one of our chat channels, of which we have many. You can submit to our table reads, our script swap, or if you're a member, you can come to Writers Lab, which is Saturdays 4 to 6, to ask those questions and get that specific 101 feedback that will help you take your script to the next level. And you can also buy these consultations from me if you'd like to. Through the website, you can just get a 30-minute session plus full notes marked up throughout the script, and I'll explain the things that you should focus on, and also just give you tips and answer the questions that you have. If we have any other questions, Atlas Cal wants a t-shirt. Well, send Nacho a message. You will definitely get one.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Hello?
Somebody has a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what were the 3 points that you had when we were coming up with the idea?
It's character, hook, and journey. That's what I usually use as the basis. So I'll write that in the chat. Character. Well, I'll put hook first, because that's usually what I start with. Hook, character, journey. And the hook is like the basic premise of what we're doing, and like the thing that makes this a little bit twisted or different from other things in the genre. Character is who we're following, and maybe the thing that they want, or the thing that's missing from their life, just what's motivating them. And then journey is going to be what is the kind of internal journey that person needs to go on. I have a question about icing, which is Pajama was asking. What is the icing part of the structure? Was that only pertaining to a title? Yeah, icing is what I call, or frosting, or the bow on top. It could be several different things. It might be a device that's used in the story, like the memento. The icing on the top of Memento, for instance, might be the cool way that the story is told, like weird chronology. Sometimes it might be a title that clarifies exactly what we're doing in the movie, like Transparent, in which case it just perfectly lays out the conflict, the world that we're in. Icing or frosting are not one specific thing. It's just kind of one last element that makes an idea feel more cohesive. I didn't go into it too much because it's the least sort of definable of these. We have more of this tomorrow. If you want to do the same sorts of activities and want to maybe start to work on your premise generating muscles, then tomorrow is a great place to come by. That'll be tomorrow at 5 o'clock, same place. Any last questions, comments from anyone in the group? Pajama asks, how long have I been running this? I think coming up on 2 years, or a year and a half-ish. Yeah, towards 2 years. We started very small, and have grown a lot since then. And started with just like it was more casual at first, but we've used that, like started at this small point and expanded into this whole sort of community. So I think the answer is going on 2 years. Yeah. Pajama says fueled by the pandemic, I assume. Ooh, something being fueled by a pandemic sounds so kind of creepy, but in a way, yeah, I mean, it was kind of a lucky coincidence, but the pandemic is when a lot of people were looking for online education and distance learning and ways to, especially with live teachers, to learn new skills. And so it was just a great time. Well, not a great time, but it was a time where we had a lot of interest and were able to reach a lot of people, I think. Motivated by the pandemic, yes. Thank you, Pajama. Other questions or comments? Thanks for being here, guys. And Nacho, if there's anything else you want to announce, feel free, of course.
Yeah, we have 3 free classes coming up. So July 27th, How to Analyze a Screenplay. This is a 2-day course that helps you master methods used by pro script readers. And this can be helpful if you're interested in working as a script reader or just to critique your own scripts more effectively. And that's going to be next Wednesday and Thursday. How I Wrote This, Conor's going to be interviewing the writer of Meat, which is a fantastic script for the Blacklist from a few years ago. And that's on August 3rd. And then August 13th, Conor is going to teach you how to write a short film. So all 3 of these classes, they're filling up. So please RSVP. You need to click those links and hit the RSVP button to save your spot. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining, guys. Hope you all have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you soon.